Okay, so you sent us tons of articles all about superhero movies, and looks like you're trying to figure out, like, is the genre dead? Is it dying? Or is it just kind of evolving?
Yeah,
Let's dive in and see what we can uncover. I'm seeing a lot of talk about superhero fatigue.
right.
Our audiences just like tired of capes and tights. Marvel and DC both have had some box office stumbles lately, but there are also some exciting new directions.
Yeah.
So by the end of this deep dive, you'll have a much clearer picture of what's going on. And we'll leave you with some questions to ponder.
It's amazing how fast things change.
Yeah,
It seems like just a few years ago, superhero movies were unstoppable. Avengers,
right.
Endgame, huge phenomenon.
Right.
Broke box office records,
Mhm.
cultural touchstone.
It felt like everybody was talking about Endgame, but if you think about it, that success was built on a very specific formula. You have your origin stories, you have your massive CGI battles,
Yeah.
and those world-ending stakes.
That's right. And that formula, as successful as it was, might be wearing thin. I mean, look at Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp. Quantumania stumbled at the box office. I think critics and fans both pointed to the overstuffed plot
Mm.
and that very confusing introduction of Kang, the villain who's supposed to be the next big bad.
And how about Eternals?
Oh, yeah.
It felt like Marvel was trying to do something different, introduce a whole new team of heroes with this like cosmic backstory spanning centuries.
Across millennia,
But it didn't click with audiences.
just didn't land. Yeah, and I think what we're seeing is that audiences are starting to crave something more than just spectacle. They want stories that resonate on an emotional level, characters they can actually connect with,
Yeah.
and narratives that feel fresh and surprising.
So what is Marvel doing to recapture that spark? I mean, they've got some big projects coming out. Deadpool 3 is generating a lot of buzz,
Oh, yeah.
especially with Hugh Jackman coming back as Wolverine.
That's a huge deal. I mean, talk about a smart move.
Yeah.
You get that nostalgia, but also the promise of something new. And then there's the Marvels, bringing together Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Kamala Khan.
Ooh, that's an interesting team up.
A lot of potential there.
Yeah, especially with all the excitement around Miss Marvel.
Absolutely.
But they also have to figure out how to navigate this increasingly complex multiverse storyline. I mean, they've been seeding it through Loki, Spider-Man, No Way Home, Doctor Strange, and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah,
I gotta be honest, I'm still a little fuzzy on some of the details. It feels like a lot to keep track of.
it is a lot. I mean, the multiverse has endless possibilities for stories,
Mm.
but it also risks alienating viewers who haven't been following every single installment. That's a tough balancing act. Be interesting to see how Marvel pulls it off, especially with Avengers, the Kang Dynasty on the horizon.
And speaking of juggling a complex universe, let's
Yeah.
talk about DC.
Oh boy.
They've gone through some serious changes.
Yeah.
Brought in James Gunn and Peter Safran to lead a full reboot
Complete overhaul.
of their cinematic universe.
That's a gamble.
Yeah, I mean, Gunn's track record with Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad shows he's not afraid to take risks,
That's for sure.
to inject some humor and heart into those stories. But it's a big task.
Huge undertaking.
DC films have struggled with tonal consistency and just having a coherent vision.
It's been a mixed bag.
Yeah, there's been a lot of starting and stopping, different directors and actors coming and going. I can see why some fans might be skeptical about yet another reboot.
I get it. But, the success of The Batman, which took that darker, more grounded approach, it proves that audiences are open to fresh interpretations.
And then there's Blue Beetle, which feels like a step in a new direction for DC. Didn't shatter any box office records, but it focused on a lesser-known hero, Jaime Reyes, explored themes of family and cultural heritage. It felt different from the typical big-budget superhero spectacle.
It was a much more personal story. Blue Beetle is a really good example of how superhero stories can connect with audiences on a personal level. Jamie's struggles to balance his family's expectations with his newfound powers resonated with a lot of viewers, especially those from similar backgrounds.
It's a good reminder that these stories can be more than just capes and tights and explosions and battles. They can be about relatable characters, human emotions, the challenges we all face in finding our place in the world.
That's where this whole discussion of superhero fatigue gets interesting. Are audiences truly tired of superheroes? Or are they just tired of the same old formulas and tropes?
That is the question, isn't it?
It is.
Maybe it's not about superhero fatigue. Maybe it's just a craving for something new, something that pushes the boundaries of the genre, offers a fresh perspective.
Right. I mean, look at the success of a film like Spider-Man, No Way Home. Brought together 3 generations of Spider-Man. Clearly, audiences still have a huge appetite for these stories if they're well-crafted, if they're emotionally resonant, and if they offer something unique.
So it sounds like we're seeing a shift in the superhero landscape.
We are.
Marvel and DC trying to figure out how to recapture that magic while also experimenting with new approaches. And then you have these smaller films like Blue Beetle finding success by telling more intimate and relatable stories.
It's a really fascinating time for the genre. The old rules are being challenged, and the possibilities are wide open. But before we dive into those possibilities, let's shift our focus for a moment and consider what this all means for you, the listener, host speaker.
We've been talking about the big picture, box office, successes, creative struggles, big studios trying to find their footing.
Right.
But let's bring it back down to you, the listener. What does this all mean for your own superhero experience?
Yeah, we talk about superhero fatigue as this general phenomenon, but it's a personal experience.
Yeah.
Your journey with these stories is unique. So think about it. What was the first superhero movie or show that really hooked you?
Oh, good question. For me, it was probably the original Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire. Saw it in the theater and was just blown away by the web slinging, the emotional weight of Uncle Ben's death, the whole thing. It just sparked a love for the genre.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. I mean, for some people, it might be the Christopher Reeve Superman films,
Yeah.
the Tim Burton Batman, or even the more recent Black Panther. Point is, these stories resonate with us on a personal level.
Yeah.
They tap into our sense of wonder, our desire for heroes, our need for escapism.
But like we've been saying, that sense of wonder can fade if we're just bombarded with too many similar stories. Have you ever felt like you've reached a saturation point?
Yeah.
Like you just can't stomach another origin story, another world-ending threat?
Yeah, I get it. And you know what's interesting is that as the genre has expanded, it's created space for a wider range of tastes and preferences. There's not really one dominant formula anymore. We're seeing everything from gritty realism to lighthearted comedy, from introspective character studies to mind-bending multiversal adventures.
So how do you navigate this increasingly diverse landscape? How do you find those superhero stories that are right for you?
I think it's all about being mindful of your own preferences. You don't have to watch every single Marvel or DC release just because it's part of the mainstream. Think about the stories that actually pique your interest, the characters you find compelling, the themes you want to explore.
It's like curating your own superhero menu,
Exactly.
right? Do you prefer a light and breezy Shazam or a dark and brooding Batman? Are you fascinated by the cosmic scope of Guardians of the Galaxy or the street-level grit of Daredevil? I mean, the choices are pretty much endless.
They are. And here's another tip. Don't be afraid to venture outside the familiar territory. Of Marvel and DC,
Right.
there's a whole world of independent and international superhero stories out there.
You're right, like The Boys, superhero story, but it's also a scathing satire. Corporate power, celebrity culture, the very idea of heroism. It's dark, it's violent, it's hilarious. Definitely not for everyone. But it's found a huge audience because it offers something different, something that challenges the conventions of the genre.
And then you have Invincible. Starts off like a typical animated show, but it gets dark and subversive real quick, exploring themes of morality, trauma, consequences of power. I mean, it's a brilliant deconstruction of the whole superhero mythos.
It's so well done. These shows are proof that there's a real hunger for these stories that push the boundaries, question the status quo, offer something more than just mindless entertainment.
And the great thing about these independent projects, they often have more creative freedom. They're not beholden to the same constraints as the big studios. They can take risks, experiment, explore more mature themes.
So if you're feeling kind of disillusioned with the mainstream stuff, or if you're just looking for something new, I encourage you to dive into the world of independent and international superhero stories. You might be surprised by what you find.
And, don't forget the power of fan communities. The online superhero fandom is incredibly active and passionate.
Oh, yeah. I love how social media has become a virtual water cooler for superhero fans after a big premiere. Shocking episode of the TV show. Everybody jumps online, they dissect every detail, share their reactions.
It's a collective brainstorming session. Thousands of minds working together to unpack these complex narratives
Yeah.
and explore these hidden layers of meaning.
And it's not just about analysis and theory crafting. I mean, fan communities are also a source of incredible creativity.
True.
You've got fan art, fan fiction, fan videos, even fan-made music, all inspired by these stories.
Yeah, it's a testament to the enduring power of these stories to inspire creativity and community.
So if you're feeling lost in this sea of content, or just looking for a place to connect with fellow fans, highly recommend checking out the online communities. You'll find a wealth of information, insights, camaraderie.
You might even be inspired to create something of your own. I mean, the tools for storytelling, they're
Yeah.
more accessible than ever.
That's a great point. We live in an era where anyone with a story to tell can find an audience. You can write a fan fiction story, create a webcomic film, a short film, even start your own podcast.
Why not?
The possibilities are endless.
And that brings us to a crucial point. This evolution in superhero storytelling. It's not just about the studios and the big blockbusters. It's about the democratization of storytelling. It's about empowering individuals to share their own voices, to contribute to this ever-expanding superhero mythos.
So if you've ever dreamed of creating your own superhero story, now is the time. Don't be intimidated by the scale or complexity. Start small, experiment. Find your own unique voice. Share your story with the world.
You know, we often talk about the power of superheroes to inspire us, but we also have the power to inspire others. Your story, however humble it may seem, could be the spark that ignites someone else's imagination.
And that's pretty amazing, isn't it? It's a reminder that the future of superhero storytelling isn't just in the hands of Marvel or DC. It's in your hands. You have the power to shape the genre, to contribute to its evolution, to make it your own. So we've talked about how the genre's changing, how Marvel and DC are adapting, how you as a viewer can find your own path through this crazy world. But here's what I'm finding super fascinating. Superhero stories aren't just in movies and TV shows anymore.
Right.
They're everywhere.
You're absolutely right. Superhero imagery and themes, I mean, they've permeated our culture in a way that very few genres have. I mean, think about it. We see it in fashion,
Yeah.
merchandise, video games, theme parks, even advertising campaigns.
It's like superheroes have become this modern mythology, the shared language that we use to talk about good and evil, power and responsibility,
Yeah.
hope and fear.
And just like any mythology, it reflects the values and anxieties of the time. Think about the early superhero comics, born out of the Great Depression and World War II, a time of immense uncertainty and global conflict. People needed heroes. They needed symbols of hope and strength.
And today, we're facing a whole new set of challenges.
We are?
Climate change, political polarization, social inequality. It's interesting to see how superhero stories are reflecting these anxieties.
Absolutely. We're seeing a much greater emphasis on themes of social justice, environmentalism, mental health.
Yeah.
Characters like Mrs. Marvel and Miles Morales, I mean, they're resonating with audiences because they represent a much more diverse and inclusive vision of heroism.
And it's not just about demographics. It's about telling stories that challenge those traditional power structures, explore the complexities of identity, give a voice to those who have been marginalized.
The superhero genre has always had the potential to be a really powerful tool for social commentary, for exploring these tough questions about morality, power,
Yeah.
the human condition. And as our world gets more and more complex, so do the stories we tell.
We're moving beyond that simple binary of good versus evil.
Right. We're embracing the gray areas, the flawed heroes, the villains who have sympathetic motivations.
I mean, think about a film like Black Panther, a superhero movie, but it was also this really profound exploration of race, colonialism, the responsibility of power. I mean, it sparked all these important conversations about representation, the need for more diverse voices in storytelling.
And then you have Joker, a film that really dove into the psychology of a villain
Okay.
and forced us to confront the forces that can create monsters.
I mean, these are not your typical superhero stories.
No, they're challenging, they're thought-provoking, they're sometimes even uncomfortable.
But that's what makes them so powerful.
Right.
They're pushing the boundaries, asking the hard questions, forcing us to really look at our own biases.
Exactly.
It's exciting to see how these stories are evolving.
It is.
You know how they're reflecting the changing world, how they're sparking these important conversations. But at the end of the day, these stories are about more than just social commentary or philosophical debates.
Right, they're about hope, the belief that even in the darkest times, we can find the strength to overcome adversity. It's about the power of the human spirit to triumph over evil.
And that's a message that never gets old. No matter how many superhero movies or TV shows we watch, they remind us that we all have the potential to be heroes, to make a difference, to fight for what we believe in.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought. If you could create the next great superhero story, what would it be about? What kind of hero would you invent? What message would you want to share?
Don't limit yourself to the tropes or the formulas. Think outside the box. Explore new possibilities.
The future of superhero storytelling, it's in your hands.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope this deep dive gave you a new perspective on the superhero genre, its evolution, its impact. and its potential to inspire.
Keep those capes flying high.